5,
Stand by music.
4,
Stand by now.
3, 2, 1.
And fade up.
My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius. Father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife, and I will have my vengeance.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
What we do in life echoes in eternity.
Am I not merciful?
Welcome, friends, Romans, countrymen, to our very special year-end episode of 20 Years, 4 Beers, coming to you not from Rome, but from a frozen Minneapolis, Minnesota. My name is Steve, and this is my big brother,
Tim.
or as his wife likes to call him, the real Maximus.
Maximus.
20/4 is a podcast dedicated to rewatching popular movies from 2 decades ago, while enjoying a minimum of 4 modern beers. This week is definitely going to be 5, with the 2.5-hour movie ahead of us. We have 5 planned. Seeing as this is our first year-end special, I cannot say that this is a tradition, but we hope it will become one going forward. Each episode we focus on one film from 20 years ago, and our idea was to save the, quote, best for last and discuss whichever film happens to be that year's eventual Best Picture winner at the Oscars. In this case, our film will be 2000's mega hit Gladiator. Before talking about the movie, we are going to take a stab at our first segment, which, as usual, is Drinking Buddies.
Come on, not my beer.
This segment is as it sounds, where Tim takes us through our 4 beers, this week will be 5, or our drinking buddies that accompany us through the film. Theme beers have been a fun topic of late, and we are going to keep that going. We have 1 theme beer. So, Tim, who are our buddies for Gladiator?
This week, yes, we've got our friends this week. So we're starting here with the Falling Knife Hidden Temple Hazy IPA with Azaka and Eldorado hops that we have already cracked into. Mm-hmm. Then we also have from Junkyard Brewing their double dry hopped Galactic Falconer IPA. Out of Greeley, Colorado, we've got from WeldWorks Brewing their Juicy Bits India Pale Ale with Citra, Mosaic, and Eldorado hops. Coming back to another Falling Knife that came out recently from Minneapolis, it's their Hype Beast Triple Dry Hopped Double IPA with Strata and Galaxy hops. And then rounding out the lovely evening, our theme beer. I love that you found this. It's so great. Lagunitas Maximus Ale. Dun, 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 dun.
Yep, meant to be. It had
Perfect.
to be. Yeah.
Awesome.
I was just in the liquor store staring at, trying to find a theme beer, and there it was. Like, oh yeah, there we go. Now, I would venture to guess most of our listeners have seen or at least heard of this movie, but to refresh our memories, Gladiator is a film about a former general in Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius' army named Maximus, played by Russell Crowe. Maximus is sent into slavery after the new emperor, a corrupt and creepy Commodus, played by Joaquin Phoenix, discovers his father's plans to take the throne away from him and give it to Maximus. After Commodus has Maximus's family killed, Maximus goes on a quest that leads him through the gladiator arenas throughout the Roman Empire and back into Rome, where he seeks his final vengeance against the man who took away his family. The film is directed by Ridley Scott, written by David Franzoni, John Logan, and William Nicholson. It stars Russell Crowe, Joaquin Phoenix, as well as Connie Nielsen, Richard Harris, Oliver Reed, and Jaimon Hunsu. Tim, do you have any initial memories from Gladiator?
It's one of these movies that, I remember seeing in the summer when it came out, and I don't know that I really have many memories from it. I remember at the time being like, oh, this is a spectacle. This is something I don't know that I've necessarily seen anytime recently. This kind of like sword and sandal epic. But I remember liking Russell Crowe, seeing him more like the action star, because it had been much more like the art house kind of indie for quite some time. I remember that I saw it. That's what I can remember now. How about you?
When was the last time you saw it? Do you remember?
Gosh, at least 10 years.
Really?
Yeah, easily.
I have a vivid memory of seeing it with my friend Brandon at the movie theater in Chanhassen, Minnesota. And we saw it, I think, opening weekend. And I loved it, of course. But I also agree in that beyond that, I don't remember thinking it was the most amazing film or anything like that. I just have a memory of seeing it in the theater. And, of course, really enjoying things like the action, the score is great, and buying it on DVD, early when I got the DVD player, it was one of the first ones I bought.
Yeah.
So I have those memories, but it didn't stand out as much as in our previous episodes, like with Almost Famous. So that actually brings us to our social network segment, which is our look back at the reviews or reactions from the time, both good and bad. Tim? Social network?
If you guys were the inventors of Facebook, you'd have invented Facebook.
The IMDb rating is 8.5 out of 10.
Can I interject? I did notice that's substantially higher than like a Metacritic score or the average.
Yes.
I think it's like 67 for the critics at the time.
Yes.
There's one of those sort of like 20-point bumps because fans liked it better.
And
than
it's aged
critics.
well
Yeah.
with that. So at the time, some reviews. Richard Corliss of Time magazine said Gladiator is quite a good movie, a big, fat, rousing, intelligent, daring, retro entertainment. Todd McCarthy at Variety pointed out that director Ridley Scott's bold epic of imperial intrigue and heroism brings new luster and excitement to a tarnished and often derided genre. And then our friend Big Boy Roger Ebert, 2 stars for the movie, said the film looks muddy, fuzzy, and indistinct, which employs depression as a substitute for personality, and believes if the characters are bitter and morose enough, we won't notice how dull they are. Which I will say, in hindsight, I don't know that that's the critique that I think it was.
I know. If we've learned nothing else, it's been that Roger Ebert does not love the films that we do in the way that we did.
It's the lowest rated of all the ones we listened to or watched this year.
It became the Best Picture winner.
It's insane. Speaking of Best Picture and the Academy Awards, it was up for the most that year, 12 nominations total. It was up for production design, original screenplay, cinematography, editing, score, supporting actor, and director. And then it did win for 5, the most of any movie that year, for costume design, visual effects, sound mixing, actor for Crow, and Best Picture against Aaron Brockovich, Traffic, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Chocolat.
Comes up almost every week. 2000 was a relatively weak year when it came to, I think, the awards or the award-friendly films. I think time for us to watch the movie. We'll keep cracking into some more of our beers. Released in 2000 by DreamWorks and Universal, directed by Ridley Scott. Please enjoy along with us Gladiator.
Atlas! 3 weeks from now, I will be harvesting my crops. Imagine where you will be, and it will be so. Hold the line. Stay with me. If you find yourself alone, riding in green fields with the sun on your face, do not be troubled. For you are in Elysium, and you're already dead! Brothers, what we do in life echoes in eternity.
Well, welcome back to 20/4, 20 Years 4 Beers, where we have just finished Gladiator, 2000's Best Picture winner. Perhaps not as deserving as Chocolat, but
perhaps
you cannot always get it right, Academy, as we have discussed.
Hindsight is 20/20.
That's right. Ooh. Our reaction segment that we lovingly call High Fidelity.
Top 5.
This is where Tim and I discuss our top 5 takeaways or reactions, general thoughts from rewatching Gladiator. Do you have one that stands out? Do you want to go first?
Go
ahead.
My first one was, I just love watching these movies again because this is an example of I completely forgot like the last half hour of what would happen. Like, just was I have no idea what's going to happen from this point on. And so I actually can see why this won Best Picture. Sing It Again. I think I had a memory of it, or maybe just an image of like, really, this one, like, what? Like, no, it just seems to be this kind of like throwback to like a big budget epic.
Sure. Yeah.
But maybe like throwing in some modern like twists or like high drama with the revenge and like, ooh, all these intrigue things.
Or the one crossbow early on that like mechanically turns.
Yes.
Like, wait a second here.
Yeah.
What? I highly doubt that they had a mechanism to turn it. But that's fine.
Yeah.
Modern retelling of it.
It's like 2,000-year-old like modern technology. But yeah, I was happy to watch it again, honestly.
Right. I can see why it won when you take it under the lens of the other four that were up.
Yeah.
I mean, when you do look at it from a Traffic, Aaron Brockovich, Crouching Tiger, Chocolat standpoint, of course, this just won in the end.
Yes.
I don't think it's the best picture that year, and we'll come back to that later, but I do think it makes total sense. Actually, it's been longer since you watched it. I think we discussed, and to your point of not remembering the last half hour, I remember. It's sort of the opposite. I remember the back half of that movie really well.
Sure.
It was the first half that I didn't quite remember, except for the opening, like the Germania opening, which is a terrific opening battle scene.
Yeah.
A lot of it I didn't quite remember, and boy, was I bored for about the first hour.
Yeah.
And I was like, I mean, whew, it was not as exciting as I thought it would be, or I recalled. But once Maximus takes off his helmet in front of Commodus, that's really where the drama sort of like picks up.
It was, I think we paused it to get another beer, and it was an hour and 15 minutes into it.
Yeah.
And I was like, to that point where it's like, he's just going to like get out there. And so I'm like, there's a lot of setup for an hour and 15 minutes to build the world that you want to build up for this revenge drama.
Mm-hmm. Which is old school. I mean, it is, totally. It's a lot of
slow.
Yeah, a slow burn getting there. Your second?
In our last episode, we certainly waxed poetic about the amazing performance of Tom Hanks. Clearly,
sure.
Like, I think. Mm-hmm. But seeing this again, I actually think, Crow won Best Actor, which in many ways we thought was kind of a culmination of like, well, he didn't win for The Insider, so we give him this. But I actually thought he was pretty dang good in this.
Sure.
He carries the weight of it with like pretty effortlessly and delivers some truly hokey dialogue with a lot of ease. I can see why he would be seen as like an emerging star at the time, at his point in his career. But yeah, I was actually thinking, okay, I'm okay with him winning. Actually, but it wasn't like a loss in the sense of like, oh, really? He carried this movie for me. I was impressed.
I guess I don't agree he carried it, because I think Joaquin Phoenix is terrific.
Oh, we'll have a disagreement about that. Anyway.
I think he's great. But I think, I don't disagree that he was good. Like, of course, because I think Russell Crowe's good in most everything he chooses to be really good in. But if you look at 97 to 2005, he's got LA Confidential, The Insider, Gladiator, A Beautiful Mind, Master and Commander, a vastly underrated film.
So good, so good.
And Cinderella Man.
Sure.
All in that time frame.
Yeah.
And of those six, I would say that this is his weakest of all of them, of performance-wise.
True.
And so, like, I'm not disagreeing in the sense that he's very good in this, but I think history remembers it in a sense of, is this a makeup award? Because again, Hanks had won twice at this point in the 90s, and had just been nominated a couple years prior for Saving Private Ryan, and I just feel like I don't think he was going to win for Castaway, although I think he should have back then. And he does have some very bad dialogue. This movie was nominated for screenplay, but you just kind of go, for what?
Really?
And actually, I think this film was the first film, won Best Picture, that did not win either Best Director or Best Screenplay. Like, one or the other.
Yeah.
Along the way. So I just felt like, but the writing shouldn't have won. I mean, the writing is not good. So He does definitely, when he turns around and he asks him his name, or Commodus asks him his name, and he says,
My name is Gladiator.
I'm like, come on, man.
I am the protagonist.
My name is Gladiator.
Well, good. Well, I can't wait to have an argument later.
I'm so excited.
So my second point was that. So
Yes.
So your third.
The production value, costuming, locations, like the feel of the film is totally immersive and really impressive on a small scale, like ground level when they're having kind of discussions, or like they even get to like some of these areas where it's like the pseudo gladiator world. Like the sets are ridiculously impressive for this. But I gotta say, I was really surprised by like the CGI when they get to Rome, or like the first entrance into the Colosseum. Does not hold up very well for me. I was not impressed with this kind of quality at the time, feeling like it's a bit kind of very CGI-y.
At
Didn't
the
feel
time,
very good.
I thought the graphics were terrible.
Yeah.
I actually thought the graphics were bad at the time, and it won Best Visual Effects.
Yeah.
And you're just like, again, and I think we talked about this on previous episodes. This is the time of The Matrix in '99, and then The Lord of the Rings is after this, but it's still right in that same era. And I just think that you're not. I'm not saying that you're wrong, but what I'm saying is, what's interesting is maybe it's because it's on TV and not on a big screen. I actually had a note of the visual effects are not as bad as I thought they were.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Right? Of saying, like, as I thought they were really bad.
Yeah.
But we talked about it with Oliver Reed.
Yeah, Oliver Reed. Yep.
Who died mid-production on this. And so they had to put his face digitally on it. Even the tigers in the Colosseum.
Yeah.
Those are obviously superimposed. Like, they're not really there.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they're actually pretty good.
Yes.
So I'm not disagreeing in the sense that the
okay if
graphics
you are.
aren't good, but I'm saying that they're actually better than I, in my brain, had thought they were, because I have it in my head that this would be like the skeletons from Clash of the Titans in 1982 or whatever, like of just like awful.
Like Jason and Argonauts.
Yeah, exactly. Jason and Argonauts. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I had it in my head that it was just that bad, and it's not that bad.
No.
But it isn't good either.
But you think about the effects of that point where it's like, sure, I can overlook that. But outside of that, I was super impressed with like the sets and kind of tactical feel of the movie. That was really impressive.
I agree. So my third was about the visual effects as well. So go ahead.
Zimmer, the composer. Hans Zimmer.
Yeah.
His score is really damn good.
Yeah.
It tonally changes very effectively based on like the region and the story needs. But at times it does sound really derivative of his other work. And maybe just thinking the
many do that.
totality of his work where it's either before, like there were times I'm like, this sounds like Lion King a little bit, or like stuff that would come after. And so it's fascinating seeing how I almost think of like a James Horner with everything he did. Like you can tell, that's a James Horner score.
Yeah, Thomas Newman.
Yes, exactly. Like there are times I'm like, oh yeah, this like the battle in the first 10 minutes. Yes, this sounds like a Hans Zimmer score. But overall, like I was really impressed with how it could shift and change. It was really good.
What he does really well though is, and he does this in Lion King, and I think this is why he won then for score, is he'll have this big grand theme. You know, in this one it's all those horns and it's just blaring, and then he'll have a little bit of like a drum or something like that, and then suddenly it fades into this like almost romantic theme. And he does really well of this 3 themes throughout the movie, and it just blends right in. And so, and I think this movie he does that probably as good as he does in any of his other films. Are they copies of a lot of his other themes? Of course, but most composers will copy themselves. I mean, if you're around long enough, you're gonna copy yourself.
Yeah.
My fourth point off of that was that going into this, I thought Hans Zimmer was robbed for losing to Crouching Tiger.
Yeah.
And actually, I kind of think probably not.
Agreed. Totally.
In that, I used to really think, and I think more than anything, when you listen to the score almost has a like a vocal sound to it. Like you can hum along to it, and you can dun da da dun da da dun 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 da. That you can go along with it, and I think that brings the audience into it, which makes us sort of attach more. Whereas Crouching Tiger was very romantic and very sort of like soft, right, and really draws it out. It's a really good score. So I do think I definitely changed my mind on that, but it was watching it again that maybe changed my mind. It's like, oh, this is really good, and I legitimately really good.
Yes, but
it's not as much of a major defeat as I kind of had in my head. Number 5?
For me, so in this year, this was up. Steven Soderbergh was up for Best Director for 2 movies, so Traffic and Aaron Brockovich.
Yep.
And at the time, I guess we were always obsessed with Oscars beforehand, feeling like he's going to split the vote. So how could he possibly win? But Soderbergh did win for Traffic for Best Director, even though being nominated twice in the same category. I do feel like watching this again, like Scott kind of got robbed.
Yeah.
For Best Director.
Agreed.
For this. How he manages everything from all the stuff we talked about with the, like, at times really hokey dialogue, like the script, but the actors, the production value of it, the score, all the stuff that came together. I don't quite like at times, like, the John Woo ripoff of, like, shaky, blurry, like, dazed action sequences of, like, at the beginning, like, oh, like, what are we going to... But overall, I totally think he got robbed for Best Director for the Oscar for this.
What's odd is we talk about with Russell Crowe in that a lot of actors have makeup awards. Whereas Russell Crowe was probably better in these other movies that he was in and didn't win for. And Ridley Scott has, to this day, never won an Oscar. And you would think, as of 2000, after 25 years in the industry, that you would kind of think that they would have given it to him for this kind of movie, and they gave it to Soderbergh, who at the time was also well-respected indie darling, and I could go off on a rant about my despisal of Steven Soderbergh, actually. So,
and Traffic is good.
Yeah, and so is Aaron Brockovich. I'm not disagreeing with any of that.
But the fact he was up for the same category in
twice,
twice,
didn't split the vote.
But
it's pretty impressive.
But even still, he should have won for this.
Yeah. My last point, we're on 5, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I really thought that it was interesting watching this released in May of that year, and really the studios thought this was a summer blockbuster, and I think and it was a huge hit. If this was released in October, does it win? Because you sort of have a understanding that would have been a prestige pick for awards.
Yes.
Wasn't released to critical acclaim in a lot of ways. Some critics loved it.
Sure.
But it was not released to a huge acclaim. And as with in 99 with The Sixth Sense, I think blockbusters became respected because they made money, not necessarily because they were great films. And those 2 films are good films. But the more money you made, suddenly it became like, oh, we should respect you now. And if it was released in October, November, it wouldn't have made as much money by the time things had come out. So does it get as much push?
Yeah, I feel like the 90s had that kind of synonymous, like, or connection of, like, box office and critical acclaim.
And Braveheart's another example of this exact same thing. Braveheart was released in June of that year, I think, and it made a bunch of money and tied in and was able to release on video in time for Christmas. But without the money, without the fan approval at that point, does it doesn't get as much love.
Yeah, I don't know, but then there's like examples of like English Patient where I think it's up against like 4 other like super small British like tiny films that had no box office. But no, I
just think in this particular sense, I don't think if this had come out 5 months later, I just don't think it has enough steam and enough, because movies like English Patient that come out, they're made for the Oscars. Yeah. They're just carbon copy made for the Oscars.
They know what they're doing.
Right. And to a success.
Yeah.
And this was not made for that reason. It was made for a summer blockbuster.
Crowd pleasing.
Right.
Yep.
All right, so now we're actually going to jump into our beer reaction segment, and we call Drinking Buddies the sequel.
Let's get weird.
The first one was from Falling Knife in Minneapolis, their Hidden Temple Hazy IPA with Azaka and Eldorado hops. I gave it a 4. Mm-hmm. I think we've had it before, but it was...
we've had it, yeah.
Yeah, I saw the store, I'm like, ooh, no, actually we had it before. But it's just solid. Actually, just kind of okay by their standards that I've come to expect. But no, it's a solid hazy IPA. I like it.
I have it as a 4, which is generally my lower end of Falling Knife, because I do enjoy their stuff a lot. Yes. It is not as good out of the can, which, as a general rule, is the case.
Yeah.
Tap is better. But given the circumstances we have that we can't have tap beer right now in a lot of ways, I just think that I thought going into it I would enjoy it like, I haven't had a Hidden Temple in a while.
Yeah.
And it was like, it didn't quite.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yep. It was 4. I have a 4 as well.
The next one we had was from WeldWorks, their Juicy Bits IPA. Mm. This was damn tasty.
Yeah.
Really good.
WeldWorks is amazing.
Like 4.5, 4.5, I think. For me, yeah, really, really good.
And because it's an IPA, what are the... I have a can in front of me
It's with Citra, Mosaic, and Eldorado. Great combo.
WeldWorks is outstanding. They are easily an outstanding brewery. So if you get a chance to get their stuff, it's great. Yep. I have a 4.25 on this. Full disclosure is that because there's also they released an extra Juicy Bits one.
Super juicy.
It was, and actually had bits of the fruit in it. It was like peach.
Really?
It was an actual like bits of, so it was like extra juicy bits. And that was like one of my favorite beers ever. And so I think, and I've had this before, but I just think that was like I probably was thinking more about the extra juicy at the time, I mean, I had 4.25 and it's great. I really love this beer. So I have a 4.25.
Then we tapped into Junkyard Brewing, their double dry hopped Galactic Falconer, which we talked about before. We had this for the first time years ago.
The regular version,
The regular version. Right. Seeing in a movie one time.
Ready Player One.
In the theater. The double dry hop, this was damn good.
You think so?
I thought it's a 4.75 for me. Like,
what?
Yes. The standard is tasty.
Wow.
But this one just put it up a notch for me.
Wow.
This is fantastic.
Huh.
Loved it.
Well, we find ourselves at one of our first impasses on a beer, actually.
You didn't like it?
It's not that I didn't like it. I actually have it at a 3.5.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, maybe a 3.75 once I finally rate it. I washed out my cup ahead of time. Oftentimes that is the case, right? Where you just forget to wash it out and it gets a little bitter. I had that on New Year's Eve where I put in a verbal tip in a glass that had a sour beforehand.
Sure.
And Lord Almighty, did I have to dump half that beer.
Yeah.
It did not work.
Huh.
But I rinsed it out. I don't know if it was... I don't know. I just didn't... It did not... It did not hit for me.
So good.
So I had a 3.5, 3.75 right in there. Our first real big impasse. That's a 1 point difference. That's about as big as it gets.
That was
about as big as it gets.
Oh man, all right, here we go.
Then it was the DDH. We did have the one before, and I liked Galactic Falconer before.
Yes.
I'd have to look it up, but I'm sure I rated that like a 4.25. It didn't.
That's why I got this. I'm like, Steve,
I don't know, man.
Then we had Falling Knife again, another option. Their Hype Beast Triple Dry Hopped Double IPA with Strata and Galaxy hops. Partnership with Black Stack, another brewery in the cities. I gotta say, I feel like maybe above double dry hopped. It's a bit of a excess and somewhat maybe a moot point. A bit too much for me. I give it a 3.75, which is not that bad in the grand scheme of things. But maybe Blackstock, who's known in the cities for really being like hop aggressive, might have been the driving force for this. But yeah, I didn't find that, especially coming after the double dry hop,
right? Yeah,
being like, this is incredible. Triple's gonna bring up like a 6 out of 5. No, it didn't do much for me. It was fine.
Sure,
but yeah.
Again, it was a 4 for me.
Sure.
Which, of late, is high for Blackstack and low for Falling Knife. Like,
True.
It's just sort of.
Yes.
But I totally agree in a sense of it was unimpressive but not bad.
Yeah, like the third one was.
Right.
Really
Does the
needed?
third dry hop need to happen?
No.
We need the third one?
No.
Brewery experts could tell us otherwise, like it'll do this.
Yeah.
But the double dry, I will say the double dry hop Galactic, if they had thrown a third dry hop, it wouldn't have mattered. Like, I don't understand what the third dry hop is. But, we're not brewery experts.
No,
so.
Exactly. And then to end it out, which is really perfect for ending the movie, the Lagunitas Maximus Ale. It was a 4 for me. It was clean, and I gotta say, just okay at first. But kind of like the movie, totally grew on me.
Yeah.
As I finished, I'm like, ooh, this is getting quite good. I liked it. Yeah, 4 for me.
It helps that it's the 5th beer.
True.
It does help.
And it's all
that it's
IPAs.
beer. It's all IPAs tonight. I have a 4.25. Largely because I appreciate about a double IPA. A lot of double IPAs almost are too, malt heavy or like.
Yeah.
And I think this has more of a hop bite to it. It's the only beer we poured tonight that wasn't hazy. It was
very standard.
It was a good amber color, and I really liked it. It did grow on me more though. I probably started at a 4.
Yeah.
And ended up at a 4.25. So I agree. It was definitely good.
Good.
Okay. Well, our next segment would be Hot Shots and Hot Shots Part 2.
You're American. Yes, from America.
Where Tim and I offer up a hot take that might not have been there 2 decades ago, or just is something we randomly thought about. Tim, do you have a hot take first, or would you like me to go first?
Mine's about Joaquin Phoenix, so I don't know if you want me to, do you want to get in a fight about this, or do you want to go first?
I'll go first in the sense of, but is it possible that Ridley Scott is one of the most underappreciated directors in the history of film? And I think, yes, it is. Everyone says, yes, this director is great.
Yes.
But not everyone says they're one of my favorite directors. And I think Ridley Scott, we would say, oh yeah, Ridley Scott's a great director. But I would not list Ridley Scott as my top 5 favorite directors. Maybe top 10 if I had to list the top 10. But he might crack the top 10. And yet when you look at the films that he's released over the course of 40 years, many of which are absolute classics, like Alien. I would say, like Gladiator, at least from a Best Picture standpoint, it is there. Thelma and Louise. I love The Martian. Black Hawk Down's a great movie.
Yeah.
I start looking at Ridley Scott's actual films. Kingdom of Heaven, the director's cut, is terrific.
Yes.
And I think, is it possible that Ridley Scott, whom everyone loves, is actually underappreciated? And I think, yes, he is.
That's a good hot take, because I think my kind of brain reaction to that was, we just watched Tenet.
Blade Runner, by the way. I was thinking Blade Runner.
Blade Runner, like Tenet recently, and it's like, despite my huge love for Christopher Nolan, most of his movies fall within a very narrow, either category or just, I know what I'm going to get from this. But yeah, the movies you list with, this, Blade Runner, the ones you mentioned, he has a really diverse and varied catalog. I could see that. I agree. I don't seek his movies out, but when they come out, I'm typically impressed. Yeah, The Martian. Totally forgot that was Ridley Scott.
Well, how about, as I'm looking at it, you've got
Yeah.
American Gangster
Yep.
is him. Prometheus is him, which is not a great movie, but is a well-directed film.
Yeah.
No argument about that. White Squall. Not
Really?
Yeah. And
That's right.
so there are 5 or 6 films on him that are really, really great, and some favorites. I don't know. So I think he's I think he's well respected,
Yes.
but underappreciated, as evidenced by the fact that he doesn't have an Oscar on his shelf. That he just doesn't have that kind of stuff on.
It's almost like the converse of the mini pod we did with Ron Howard, where it's like,
Oh yeah,
the prestige and what people hold in Hollywood for such a director, the output is very different in terms of what Ridley Scott produces than Ron Howard. All right. Yeah,
there you go.
I like that. That's good.
All right, let's fight this out.
Oh, okay. So here's my hot take. I truly think like Joaquin Phoenix is easily one of the best actors of his generation.
Okay.
I mean, you think of the roles like last year with Joker, The Master, things that he's tasked with doing that in many ways you watch just him. I watched this and God, I just detested at least the beginning. Certainly, he just seems so raw, and the term I felt like he's very actorly. Like everybody else felt pretty effortless. To me, it felt like he was acting. His accent is super unfocused. Like what are you going for here? Like at times, it's a British ripoff. Everybody else is British. Somewhat variation in this. Like I don't know who else was nominated that year for Best Supporting.
Well, Benicio del Toro won for
yes.
Traffic.
So he won, which is good, but I'm actually pretty surprised that Joaquin was nominated for an Oscar for this. Despite my love for him, I actually find him to be really, really, really amazing. This felt super young and raw and just, I couldn't stand him. I couldn't stand him at all. Yeah, that's my hot take. I was not impressed.
The first half hour, 45 minutes, like the first part,
Yeah.
I totally can see that. Like he's really, and I don't know how they filmed it, if it was chronological or how they filmed it. And he definitely feels out of place.
Yeah.
Where I turn on that is when he first sees, again, when this movie really starts for me is when Maximus reveals himself to Commodus.
Yeah.
Because before that, Commodus is just like, what? Cool, you've killed your father, you've taken over.
Yes.
To what end? Like there's nothing there. And where he inhabits it, though, to me, is that his fear, anxiety, and jealousy are not they're. You can see it in his face, but he's never necessarily like saying those things. I think his performance gets better as the movie goes on. I thought it was actually really good. I'm not going to say he should have beaten anybody that year or anything like that. Again, we're not going to argue about it necessarily. I'm not going to go out on a limb and say my hot take is that this is his best performance ever.
Okay.
My memory of his performance was not as good as what I'm experiencing it now as.
Yeah. I will say I agree with the idea that it did at least get better as it went along. It became much more compelling.
Right.
When it became more of a foil for Maximus. And I don't understand why they have to introduce these. Like, he's a villain, but, he wants to bone his sister. Like,
he's super creepy.
But
Say what you will, man.
It's
Like,
stupid.
again,
Like,
it's not good.
get it.
It's not good writing, but
No.
he is very good at being creepy. He is super creepy.
Sure.
So I mean, maybe I don't think he's a creepy person. So maybe
No.
So I just think maybe he's good at that.
I don't know. Didn't like him.
Well, all right. So our final segment for the show, for the episode, is one that both Tim and I have fun with. This is Quiz Show.
The exciting quiz program, 21.
Where we search for fun, quirky, or even difficult trivia nuggets throughout our research for the film and attempt to stump each other. I am definitely going to stump you, so that's fine. I'm just going to call it out ahead of time.
I'm not surprised.
But I will let you go first.
All right. So, critics at the time of Gladiator's release pointed out it had been quite some time since Hollywood had put out any kind of quote-unquote sword and sandal epic. Because it was around 40 years prior that the last movie in the same genre was even nominated for and certainly won Academy Awards. What 1960 movie starring Kirk Douglas, directed by Stanley Kubrick, was nominated for 6 Academy Awards in this similar sword and sandal epic?
Well, I am Spartacus, baby.
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
Yeah, Spartacus, baby!
I remember buying Spartacus as like a used copy from Hollywood Video.
Nice.
And it was the old double.
Wow.
Because it was so long. You know, it was like Titanic had that
epic.
too. And Braveheart, they had the double. It was so long, they had the 2 VHSs.
We're going to stop this.
Yeah.
You have to walk to the
I got to
device.
get up and get...
Switch out the second disc?
Ugh, the worst. I'm going to venture to guess you haven't seen that movie.
Never seen it.
Right.
No.
It is good, but it is the I Am Spartacus part.
Yeah, but 40 years.
Yeah.
That they were like, you know what? I think we're good on the genre.
Huh. You probably could have gotten me if you had just said, what was the last one to do it? Because I might have said Ben-Hur.
Sure.
Right.
Which was 1959.
Right. So once you had said Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, yeah.
Yeah.
There we go. I might have said Ben-Hur. Because I might not have thought of Spartacus.
Sorry.
That's
I'm
what you get.
I'm kind to you.
Okay.
I don't like to stump
I'm not as kind, but I will give you multiple choice.
Okay.
So most movies that desire Oscar gold are released between Labor Day and the Christmas season, especially in the last 30 years. And since Gladiator was not considered an Oscar contender when it was released, it was put into theaters in May of 2000 to be a summer blockbuster. It was the earliest release date of an eventual Best Picture winner since The Silence of the Lambs, which was released February of 1991.
Yep.
Which I will go to my grave saying that is one of the best Valentine's Day movies ever. Because it was released Valentine's Day of 1991. So it is just immediately... It is a romantic... Yeah, it was released February 14th,
You don't know pain!
Exactly. However, even that movie was not the earliest release to ever win Best Picture. That distinction is held by a movie released January 10th. Your 4 choices are It Happened One Night in 1934, The Greatest Show on Earth, 1952, Casablanca, 1943, or The Sound of Music in 1965.
Casablanca.
So actually, that's a really good guess because it's the second.
It was January 11th.
It was January 23rd.
Okay.
But The Greatest Show on Earth was released January 10th of 1952.
Wow.
And eventually ended up winning.
The entire year.
Yeah.
It dominated. Wow.
Well, all right. So this is our last 2000 film. We've watched 6 films. Well, 8 technically with the mini pods.
Yep.
We're obviously not going to count The Grinch in this. But looking back on it, I assume we have the same answer, but what was your best film of 2000?
Almost Famous.
Right.
Hands down. No question.
Yep. Which wasn't nominated, but I am with you on that one. I think Almost Famous was the best film of 2000.
It totally stands up. For 20 years watching later, it's like, I'm always a big fan of what still holds up or has a resonance to it. That one, yeah, so damn good.
Even beyond that, it's not even how it holds up. It's that it holds up and there's new layers of it 20 years later.
Totally. Yep.
And it's the only film of our 6, probably.
Yeah, it feels timeless.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good, nice summation.
Well, thank you.
That's good.
So our next episode will then be our first foray into the year 2001, because we are now no longer in 2020, thankfully. So our first picture will be one of that year's finalists for Best Picture, and our first musical of our podcast. We'll do Moulin Rouge.
I can't wait. I'm so excited. I love it.
So that brings us to the end of our episode. We made it to the end of 2020, and I want to thank you for taking time to listen. Also for the love and support from our family and friends through this whole process, giving us the time to do this.
Yep.
And obviously for clicking that like or subscribe button on your devices. Follow us on Twitter at years_beers and on Facebook, or head to 20years4beers.com. This has been 20 Years 4 Beers. My name is Steve.
I'm Tim.
And thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Am I not merciful?